Started from the bottom, kept on climbing, perfect timing, looking down from the top. I don't see no opposition from my position. I'm focused. It's the must, I complete the mission. I won't stop, I can't stop. The grind is all I know. I'm focused, I can't stop. The hustle's all I know. I'm hungry, ambitious. My heart is on go. You in the presence of greatness. That's all you need to know.
What's up, Identity Jedi family? Welcome back to the Identity Jedi podcast. And more importantly, welcome to season 3. It's been a long time. Shouldn't have left you without some dope identity content to listen to. But we did. But now we're back. We got a brand new setup, a fresh format, and some serious energy and heavy hitters lined up for this season. Now listen, whether or not you've been rocking with us since season 1, way back in season 1, or this is your very first time tuning in, I want to say thank you. The whole team wants to say thank you. It's just been amazing to watch this thing grow, and we couldn't have done it without all of you. And to the new subscribers, buckle up, welcome in. Thank you so much for joining the family. You're the reason why we keep doing this and leveling up. All right, so let's kick things off with a quick walkthrough of the Identity Jedi universe, because a lot has happened since the last time we saw each other at the end of season 2. And this has always been bigger than just a podcast, and so it's much bigger now. We have the newsletter, the Identity Jedi newsletter, which drops every other week on Wednesdays at 7 p.m., bringing identity content straight to your inbox. We've revamped the website, and we've added so much more content now and other things that we're going to be doing. And so wanted to just give a quick time to talk about that. So you can check everything out at theidentityjedi.com. If you're listening to this, theidentityjedi.com, you can go over, check out the new website, and see some of the content we're getting ready to talk about. If you're watching this on YouTube, we're getting ready to walk through it right now. Okay, so this is the new website. Listen, shout out to Beehive. This is the platform that we run this on, and it's just been so amazing watching how they've developed this over the past couple of years. I can't tell you how exciting it is to be a customer of a startup company, to just keep seeing innovation happen over and over again. It seems like every time I'm like, man, I wish this platform would do this, they're dropping it. So shout out to the Beehive crew. New website templates we got set up. You can look at all the newsletters. We've got archives here where you can go and search the older newsletters and the blogs that drop every Monday. So anything that you're looking for, you can find it on theidentityjedi.com. We had made that simpler for you now, a little bit better format. Also, this is where you can track the Identity 50. This is the 50 companies I think you should know and follow within the identity industry. We'll be keeping updates here, so it's got its own landing page now where you can go and kind of get all the updates. Also, we dropped 2 new premium features. Not really one new premium feature, because premium's been there for a while. So now if you go to this section, you go to upgrade, you get premium, which is $5 a month. You get access to your own newsletter, which comes out the Friday that the regular newsletters do, and then some other Fridays in there between there. So basically, as I find other things that I want to deep dive on, I send out to premium subscribers. And then we dropped a new one, I Am Mastery, which is at $25 a month. This is where I've been doing a ton of research lately. And so we've been taking this stuff and put it into frameworks and ebooks, and I'm dropping all that content there. And we're also going to do virtual workshops. That's going to be on the Mastery side. Once the workshops are done, the Mastery subscribers will have access to live workshops. We'll then take the content, kind of post it back to the premium. It'll just be like shortened, and then we'll probably turn it into some content to put back to the free newsletter as well. But the Mastery is where you can get all the latest content, research, all the stuff that we're doing here that I'm, working on and focusing on, that I'm working with my crew on to put it back. That's where you're going to get access to it there. So the new website, check it out. Super dope. At least I think it is. We've made some pretty good updates where you can get everything that's going on in the Identity Jedi universe, right? Next up, we can talk about the podcast. So obviously, new season, new segments. We're shaking some things up with how we're doing the podcast. This year, what we really wanted to do was make it really more of a show. So we're still going to have our guests, we're still going to have our interviews, but we're going to add in some more segments in the beginning, some things that we're seeing, some commentary on trends, things with security, leadership, and really focusing on life in the identity trenches. We're going to be getting those segments in the beginning, and then we're going to be introducing a mailbag segment. So if you got a question about identity and access management, you got a problem that you've been trying to solve and say, hey, how could you solve this? We could put that out there. Or if you just got a funny story that you want to share, send it in to identityjedi@gmail.com. We'll answer the questions on air, share some of the best stories, either anonymously, I can't really say that word, anonymously, or what you're naming it if you want the glory. It doesn't really matter, but really want to make that a fun segment. Really looking forward to it. I think you guys are going to like it. And then there's Identity Jedi University. So this is the online school for IAM professionals that we put together last year. That's in full swing. Right now, you can enroll in the IAM Masterclass and learn how to uplevel your skills with communication, asking questions, all sorts of things that I put this together and people kept asking me, like, how did you get so good at identity? And so I tried to boil all this down into one master class for you. We also have IGA Fundamentals. That's a completely free course that you can get. There's going to be more free courses coming this year, so you can go to Identity Jedi University to check that out. That's located at imdavidlee.com/Identity Jedi University. Now, real quick, I've got another exciting announcement that I wanted to share. We've got a brand partnership. So this lovely hat that I'm wearing is from Leo Vici. We've been selected as a brand ambassador for Leo Vici, and I absolutely love their content. They got premium athletic wear that works just as well in the boardroom as it does in the gym. Literally, seriously. I ordered some sweats. I love these things. I kind of wear them all the time. I need to actually order me some more. They are the softest cotton, but like in a general nice sweats feel. So you can kind of use them wherever, right? You can use them leisurely to go out, or you can kind of wear them. They do hold up well in the gym. So you can head over to leovici.com, use the code IdentityJedi for 15% off. Again, really love some of the gear. Matter of fact, if you're listening to this, head over to leovici.com, check it out, use the code IdentityJedi. And for those of you who are watching, we are going to take over to the website real quick because they just launched something that's really dope. They just launched this new golf collection. So for you golfers out there, like, some great gear they've got. I love some of their golf shirts. The hoodies is really what got me. The hats, the sweats, like I said, premium athletic gear. But they've got all kinds of great gear on here. They've got cologne, they've got accessories. So check them out. Once again, use the code Identity Jedi. Get 15% off. Yes, as a brand ambassadorship. When you use the link, I'll post that in the description notes. Yes, we do get a commission off of anything that you buy there. It's how it works with a brand ambassadorship. That's people leveling up, people. We're leveling up. So good stuff there. All right. Now, let's get to the elephant in the room. Yes, people. I took a job. Currently, I serve as the field CTO for Savient. It was an absolutely amazing opportunity, one that I just couldn't pass up. I got a chance to not only work with friends and a really good team that's looking to really do some things in the identity industry, but also connect with a company that shared my vision for where I think identity is going and the type of services and platforms that customers need, not only today, but for the next wave of identity as this thing evolves. So things just kind of came together and it was a perfect storm, a good fit to go take. So what does that mean for you guys? What does that mean for the Identity Jedi podcast? Well, it means absolutely nothing. Not nothing, but nothing's going to change, right? Still going to deliver the same content, still going to do the same type of shows that we've always done. I'm still going to have the takes that I've always take because this is about the industry. This is about the practitioners, and I want to keep that going. Now, yes, sometimes we do some collaboration things together with Savient. Absolutely. In fact, there's some things in the works right now for Identiverse. So in June, you'll be seeing something there. More on that a little bit later, waiting for some details to get finalized. You'll probably see an announcement this week when this drops. So never fear on that end, right? This will not become a product podcast. This will not become a Savient 24/7 podcast. It will still be the Identity Jedi podcast. We're still going to be talking to identity leaders. We're still going to be talking to people in the industry that are moving and shaking and doing some things, giving you the content that you know and love. So never fear about that. So let's see. Let me check my notes here. I think we've covered everything that we wanted to cover here. We got that. All right. Well, there's nothing left to do but get into this week's episode, right? Listen, we had a special guest to kick off season 3 of the Identity Jedi podcast. It's Jordan Burris. Jordan Burris is a longtime fan of the podcast, and he was actually, if I go back, yes, he was one of the original guests in our first season it comes. Jordan and I connected at Identiverse a couple of years ago. He works for Secure, working on the digital fraud and risk side of identity. He's worked in the public sector. This is his field, right? When you want to talk about what's going on in advancements on the digital identity and fraud side, there's no better person that you can talk to than Jordan Burris. His knowledge and passion for this side of the industry is just amazing. And he's really a dope person just to talk to and listen to. So we had him on the pod this week to talk about digital risk and fraud, AI and ML. What are some of the things that we're seeing there? What is this wave of things that we've seen with AI over the last 5 years? How's that really affected something like this, the digital secure fraud and risk side? Because quite frankly, they've been using ML and a lot of these things for years now before it became popular. But great interview coming up. So check that out. And then stay tuned after the interview, after the break. We're gonna do some more fun stuff to kick off season one. Or sorry, to kick off season 3, man, it's going to be a blast. See you after the break.
And that really, all that was required to do that was to say that you had proof of the attributes associated with a person. So their name, their date of birth, social security number. How many data breaches have we been a part of? Or many of us have seen, where basically that information is completely out in the wild. So they knew very early that just relying on that regulation as the way that it was constructed was not good enough for determining who someone was. So then they looked to the perspective of, hey, is there a way to predict that someone is potentially fraudulent? Is there a way to determine that, hey, just because they have the PII, are there other things that you could look at? And then that's where you have effectively an industry in and of itself that has evolved over time. When we look into how AI has made this more complicated, we've gone from what would be very targeted, bespoke attacks, intending to disrupt or intercept someone's identity, to now full automation and full usage of tools that are available to help adversaries or others execute on their schemes. Think about it this way: you were talking about, your grandmother maybe using ChatGPT, or our listeners may be doing that. On the fraud side, they actually have things like Fraud GPT, where they will, through LLMs, large language models, inquire about best ways to execute a fraud attack and then go launch it. And so we've now encroached into an entirely different space where it is much easier to perpetuate fraud, and then the tactics that were previously being employed by largely fraud ring nation states or others are just accelerating at a faster clip.
That is, I don't even know where to start when he said Fraud GPT, right? Like I'm just thinking they probably have secure dev pipelines to build their own Fraud GPT.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. If you think about everything that you would want to do on the offensive side, they've basically done it on their end, right? Or to get ahead of what it is. And think about sharing insights, making sure that they're training on what has worked, right? It used to be the thought that, hey, it would just be on like the dark web and you would share and exchange information. But no, they're sharing what tactics are working. They're sharing who is susceptible. How do you actually exploit it? And they don't stop there, right? I think that, for an example, one thing that we see is like first and there's different variations of fraud, right? You'll hear me say things such as third party, which references me stealing someone's identity, synthetic, completely fabricating it, and first party, which is me being Jordan, but I do bad things and I lie or I pretend that I, do things such as, for an example, I run up a bill on my credit card and then dispute the charge, and I abuse it and saying, hey, I didn't make these charges.
That wasn't me.
In reality, it was me, right? At the end of the day, like that's first party fraud. So this gets shared on TikTok these days. So like we've also, in some cases through even social, have democratized the access to the information used to perpetuate fraud.
And now you think it like, so the first time that I saw, ChatGPT, right? I saw it maybe a couple of months before it was like when everybody knew about it, right?
Yeah.
And the first thing I thought, I was like, dude, this is in its simplest form, right? You've just basically made the entire internet searchable, and which it already was for your Google, but now searchable and consumable in a way that the average person can understand it super quickly, right? Like Google made it searchable where I can go find whatever I want, right? But like, say I went to go look at financial documents, I needed to understand what I was looking at. I could go read research papers, but I needed to understand what I was looking at, right? I couldn't tell Google to explain this to me. Now I have that same thing, but now I have an interface that says, yeah, break this down to me. How do I do this with this? How do I do this? And so that's the first thing I saw, right? And then you extrapolate that out. And so now you look at on the fraud side, it's like, to your point, how many data breaches have all this information get out? We talked about this last time, like just synthetic identity. Like there's enough information out there. I can create and fabricate any kind of identity. But now, guess what I can do? I can give it a back end story. I can give it a voice. I can give it a sound. I can give it, like, I can take this information and go, okay, I can create a history off of it. Like, based on what I know, give me an address history, give me a background report. Like, this is like the type of things that you can now fabricate. And I'm talking like click of a button, type it in, and it's there. And now I create a fraud GPT and I can share it with the other bad guys, and I can share things in real time. Like, it is, whew.
That's right.
I mean, it's both terrifying and exciting, because the nerd in me is excited about it, because I'm like, this is where we are, but like terrifying because I'm just like, dude, most organizations don't even think this way.
Right. And so it's interesting because, like, if you can think about, like, I always like to try to provide as many examples as possible for folks to try to help grasp like what is actually happening. Something as simple as like emails and the way that they get created. It used to be that you would have some type of script if you were a fraudster, right? And you would basically come up with like a list of emails that you may want to try, or things that you would create. Through these tools and through AI in the way that it's being used today, you can basically generate them very quickly. But then you can also assign to them different characteristics and variations that try to link closer to the way that a normal person would construct their emails, right? So we all remember the don't answer the email if it seems like it's coming from the wrong type of domain or it's completely scrambled. Well, they've learned from that. So now they present email domains that look realistic. They have the period for like Jordan.Burris put in very interesting places in order to trip what would be legacy solutions that have been put in place in order to catch that it's the right person. And understanding that in some cases we were thinking about fighting fraud by kind of this singular lens of I'm only going to look at the PII, I'm only going to look at the email, I'm only going to look at the phone. The reality is that they're manipulating different parts of someone's digital footprint ultimately to be able to perpetuate this scheme. So the only way you actually stop them is by understanding it all and being able to decision or make an assessment of risk in aggregate. This means looking at the device the person is using, looking at their geolocation. This means looking at those attributes that's being provided, looking at velocity. And I mean by velocity, did they engage in impossible time travel? Did they somehow open an account in New York and then simultaneously try to do it in California? If they did invent time travel, I, for one, would like to sign up because I hate waiting at the airport. But the reality here is that this is what's happening at scale. And then through AI, we just automated it. So that way we've helped them do this now at a faster clip. So they can do this now attacking financial services, government, crypto. Like there's so many areas where they're able to execute and perpetrate these schemes today.
And I think it's interesting because for noobs, I think the idea of identity verification, it's what's been democratized by Apple and Microsoft, right? Windows Hello, my face recognition to log in, get away from passwords because I'm writing them down, right? And so I can prove who I am, and therefore I can have a digital driver's license, which is becoming a thing now, right? And I think a lot of corporations, Jordan, and I'm saying we because I've been in large corporations, we feel like that's good enough, right? Why do we need downstream solutions? Why do we need more? I think what you're saying is I can be fooled into believing that Samir's face was used to open this machine because of a deepfake, right? And once that deepfake has been authorized, I can do it again and again and again with powerful LLMs, right? And so what comes next? I think you're bringing up some really key points around velocity and behavior and attributes around that. And David, not to make this a long question, but you and I have heard about UEBA since, I don't know, like before Securonics was even around Securonics, 15 years ago, right? Maybe.
Yeah.
Is it finally coming to reality that we are going to have real-time attributable behavior to help us do better authentication and authorization? Is that what's happening? That's what I'm feeling.
I'll let Jordan go first.
I would say the reality is it already exists. So the industry has evolved, and I'd say because we are able to do this, but I also want to be clear about a couple of things. So it's interesting when your first premise was discussing kind of the way in which we've looked at authentication as a mechanism and like how people are initially enrolled. We used to just say that because you provided PII or you provided a government issued driver's ID at the time of enrollment, that you were good enough. to it, and we just let that go. We didn't do any type of validation later on. We didn't basically do some type of continuous monitoring. It was just like a set it and forget it, and then never revisit it. The reality is, I would call all that into question these days, right? Because we also used to rely on things like knowledge-based authentication, which many of us will say should never be used. It's never a good thing. And for those, again, who may not be familiar with the subject, it's where they ask you those questions of what car did you own? What was the last loan you took out? Right? Like
What's
those.
the name of your first cat?
That's right. And in our research, we've seen that basically good people actually fail that more often than fraudsters because they have it available to them through what would be like these LLMs. So they actually can just copy and paste the answer very easily, whereas the rest of us are scrambling, trying to figure out all these things out. So like we've basically grown and transitioned from a perspective where you would start off believing that the enrollment process was foolproof to then realizing that it's completely susceptible. I can basically fabricate a document using your PII and my face that looks real. And if you're not putting in place the right type of mechanism up front to determine it is a fake, people will believe that I'm Samir, right? In the way that it's constructed, right? The old concept of saying that providing your fake ID at the club to get in and then replicating that online is good enough. The reality is it's not. Right. And so a number of these processes are being battle tested. And then when you start to look at different processes, we kind of let go by the wayside. Account recovery. How many times have I heard of account recovery being used to get into the ecosystem of a company for an employee? Imagine what's happening with the public these days, because it's very easy for me to call into a phone, a hotline, give you the information that you claim that you want. You've never seen me. And then you've given me the keys to the kingdom. And so you're understanding like it's kind of this multifaceted area and how this has to be addressed. But to circle back to your point on behavior, and the reality is there is no other way that you can accurately determine that it is the right person if you're not incorporating behavioral signals into what is happening. Now, I'm not saying be completely creepy and track every single thing that Jordan does, but you can start to analyze certain characteristics of how I may be behaving. For example, and this may be controversial, I love Android phones. I am not an iPhone user. I'm just not a fan. I have my own thing against it. My team makes fun of me for it all the time. If somehow all of a sudden I swapped over to Apple and then I changed my language settings on my phone from English to Mandarin, and then, oh, by the way, I'm able to fill out a form in less than a second when, knowing me, I'm probably have like 5,000 typos as I'm typing something, right? Like that's not characteristic of how Jordan would typically operate. And the ability to predict and discern that is really what allows groups to differentiate how they're approaching this in this space and catch fraudsters in real time.
Very cool. Very cool. Lots to think about there.
I mean, I think so. The problem with UEBA, right, and we even said it then, is it was way too early, right? And we were trying to get people to see the vision and understand the story, but the threat wasn't real yet, right? And so business perceived it as like, oh, you're just being the security guy, just being a security girl, like fear, uncertainty, and doubt, yeah, whatever. I don't see any of that stuff, right? The threat wasn't real enough yet, even though the threat existed and we knew it existed and we knew it was coming, right? But we couldn't. This is the age-old security problem, right? The problem is coming. We just can't tell you when it's coming. But we know, like we see all the signs. Like literally every single thing is there that they can do this now, but we just don't know when it's going to happen. And so why security is always kind of behind the eight balls, because we have to wait for the threat to actually be in the building, in the door. And now you're like, oh shit. And now we're like, yeah, hey, told you, right? Now all of a sudden we got to go deploy. So I think UEBA was ahead of its time, and so now it's kind of evolved into this. And really, if you look at it, I think what happened with UEBA was like it just kind of dissolved and then turned into ITDR or Cloud Security Posture Management. Like all the stuff that UEBA was trying to do just kind of got dispersed into other products, right? And now, as we're starting to look at this, it's starting to come back around. Identity Security Posture Management, Cloud Security Posture Management, blah, blah, call it whatever you want to. It's the same thing. It's like, listen, it is not enough just to authenticate somebody with a password or a token or whatever. We have to continuously be authenticating and looking and proving that this person is who they say they are, right? Like, and then from there, I can take actions on other things, right? And so it's even on the workforce side for CISOs, CIOs, right? We started to see this I heard it a lot like 2 years ago, right? And then I haven't heard a bunch of it since. Doesn't mean it's still not happening, but obviously we saw this big wave coming out of the pandemic when verifying users from a workforce perspective. You're hiring somebody.
Yeah.
Gordon does the interview, right? Samir shows up to do the intake, and I'm the one that's doing the work, right? Like, and it's like, so then, and it was all remote, so everybody starts doing this whole like come back to the office type thing, and then it's like Samir shows up, and it's like that's not. And we had instances where people were doing, and it was months before the organization could figure out that, wait, you're not the right person.
Right.
You're not who we talked to, who we thought we were hiring, right? So if you don't think, or organization, that this is affecting you on that side, it absolutely is, right? And then really, I would say the scary part for organizations, even if you're not, if customer identity, because this is where all this falls, is not in your purview right now. It is in your purview: external vendors, suppliers, right? Those contractors that you like to hire and come in. How do you know that that's who that person is? You're dependent on an outside entity that you don't really know and have any trust value to verify that person for you, and then send them into your organization and give them access. Like, this is like the concept of identity right now. If I'm a CISO, if I'm a CIO right now, what's going in my head, and I'm probably pushing it back because I got other stuff in, is like, I need to have a holistic identity program. Like, I need to have a complete view of all of this. Like, I can't separate this anymore. And it's a nagging thought right in the back of your head right now, only because all the other stuff is screaming in front of you, right? Google just bought Wiz for $30 billion, right? Blah, 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 blah. Security. But there's a small voice screaming in the back of your head like, I think I need to have all of this in one, right? I think I need to start figuring this out, because it all comes back to this vector at the end of the day, which is identity, and what we're able to do with it. I think now we're in that phase of, here's the big question, right? What is a digital identity?
That is going to be the question, right? And it really just continues to evolve. It's actually interesting because you did ask the question of whether or not that is still happening with the workforce. I can tell you, yes, definitively, but because we see it, unfortunately. But then also, it's evolved. So now it used to be that, again, Samir, and I'm not picking you, Samir, but like I said, you would potentially do the interview and then David would show up on the job. Well, now what they'll just do is they'll do a deepfake of David's face while Samir's answering questions. So they're actually just none the wiser completely. They'll fabricate a lot of the documentation, a lot of the credentials, the diplomas. Like, there's a lot that effectively can be disrupted these days.
I was going to add to that, Jordan. I think there's going to be a gray area that's going to get kind of either acceptable or well understood. And I know it's happening, but it's there, and I've got too many other problems to fix. My worry is this: that somebody is going to sign up for a contract job with 5 different companies, have a bot, right, that they use to do half the work, right? Do it in 2 hours instead of 8, but bill you for 8. And the response is going to be, well, they did the work anyway, or they got it done somewhat well, right? And maybe not in the too far distant future. You mentioned the deepfakes. I'm seeing some of these software services that can, change my voice, change the way I look, obviously all that stuff, but also not even be a real person, and just kind of be nodding along, and you give it enough prompts to kind of have a serviceable conversation in a group setting, like maybe 20, 30, 40 people. Just say, yep, I'll take some notes. I'll get back to you. Let me check with David. You teach it enough to just take notes, come back and tell David, hey, while David's taking his nap, doing what he does and doing another job maybe, right? That's the scary part, is that to your point about identity, what's human, what's not.
That's right.
What's real, what's not. And yes, some companies will push you to come back into the office, like the Facebooks of the world and Amazons, etc. But not everyone is going to be in person, right? In fact, we don't even know where they are anymore. Can I mask my identity with a VPN to be sitting in China, right? But come in through a US IP address, right? So it's kind of scary, and I don't know if there's a one. I agree with you, David. There needs to be, we look at this holistically, but maybe the next whiz, the 30 billion dollar whatever, right, is going to be a company in this space, right, that really solves this holistically.
I I think it's going to have to be because, and Jordan, I want to get your thoughts when I say this phrase, right? Agentic AI.
Mm-hmm.
How does that change? Like we're talking about creating digital workers, right? That come in, it's RPA, to the next level. So let me back up and give some answers to the acronyms. RPA, robotic process automation, right? That's been around for a while. Basically, you're writing a script to go do a job, right? Cool. All right, we've done this for decades, right? Service account, spin up, go do this. Cool. But now we're saying an RPA, a robotic process automation, was like, hey, go follow what Jordan does, go screen scrape, and then like replay that back every single time. Okay. Then we added some self-healing into it. Nice, no problem, right? So it's thinking. Now we're talking about, no, I take an AI and I just kind of give it a set of instructions. Hey, your job is customer service representative, respond to these things, use these applications, knock yourself out, right? Figure out how you're supposed to go do it. And now it's like, this thing is working. It makes kind of decisions and says, I'm going to pull this in, or I'm going to pull this data in and do these things. And so now to that point, right, we're at the tip of it. People are looking at it. Agentic AI is starting to kind of show up in different areas. But you see this concept of digital worker, like every single CFO is going to start salivating. Wait a minute, I can drop my OpEx by 40%, right? Instead of offshoring, I can now just do digital. Like this is going to be great, right? And so now, what is a digital identity? What is the difference between a human capital person and a non-human capital person? Does it truly matter? Like, and if it matters, what's the line? Because to your point, Jordan, it's not PII. Oh, I can get that anywhere. So what's the line?
That's right. That's right. It's and really what it is, right? If you were asking like what is the difference between it then and now, yeah, there was the premise of PI. There was also the thought of the evidence that you could provide, right? Could you provide your driver's license? The reality is, it's that it's going to continue to be the different breadcrumbs that are being used to create effectively what is a digital mosaic, right? There are going to be different things of you that have to be pulled together in order to provide assurance that it is the right individual, right? All those factors I've talked about earlier, but the important piece is also doing it and having a confidence interval or confidence level that it is the right person. So I've also like worked in and seen this space like, from when I was working in government. Like the average vendor in this space originally was like about 60% accurate most of the time as they were engaging. And they would do that for government quite a bit. And so what everyone fallback would be come in person, go do things, right? Pandemic threw that on its head, and we actually knew that was going to happen because there was no more excuse of come in person. Everyone was doing the whole stand back and we're not going to engage. The reality is that the high accuracy in this space is really what's going to matter. And to your point on agentic, again, these are all things we consider. We, as a company, like we were doing AI before AI was cool. Our founder was, and our CPO, and then they of course brought the rest of us on. But what's cool to me is that we also undertook a strategic pivot towards the end of last year, where we recognized that it wasn't good enough to have like the most accurate and performant products in the market. We needed to basically create the bedrock or the foundation for an organization to basically pull all the signals that they're getting. Because there's signals that inherently that we won't have, that they will. There's insights, there's data, there's aspects of how you view an identity or a consumer that are important. And what does it look like to pull it all together under a single plane so you can make a unified decision, that holistic piece that you elevated, right? We call it risk operating system. But the point is that if we gave the control to someone to basically set the entire way in which they evaluate now someone's identity, and now I can do this at scale with the human, we can talk about how this plays into the agents that are being provided, right? How can we use the agents that we have available to also counter and provide more explainability to actually run through the evaluation and the case management in some cases of these items, right? Like, how do you bring these ecosystems together where you're basically now able to keep parity with what's evolving, right? I have an agent that is going to be doing a task. Can I also use an agent to help me discern the highest risk in the individuals who are providing their identity? Can you then make all that consumable? So if I am a cybersecurity specialist, a fraud fighter, can I then take an action that is informed based on my risk posture and tolerance? ultimately at the end of the day, right? And that's really where we're going to be going, right? Is bringing kind of that centralized visibility where, and frankly, something used to frustrate me was, it always used to be a black box. Everyone said, oh, it's magic behind the scenes, unicorns and rainbows. I think getting to the perspective of the point where you'll actually have perfect clarity as to what is occurring, why it is occurring, and then being able to take more proactive measures, like that is where this is going to go. So then everyone is going to become more informed. Think about it in the perspective of, you say ITDR, you can say any endpoint work, right? There was a lot of unknowns up front, and now the more visibility that folks are getting, the more proactive they can be. I think that's really what's going to happen here. It's going to be shifting more towards that.
Yeah. Brand new world. I don't know how much we're ready for it, though.
Yeah.
So
I should get excited.
Listen, I love it. I can't wait to see what comes out of it, what technologies we drive out of it. Like I was saying earlier, I think this time in this era of what we're seeing, we're finally able to start creating tools that truly help not just solve technical problems, but help you drive change and see and, for lack of a better word, like kind of predict, where you're going to be headed as a business, right? Like I think the strength of ML and data science always was you're able to look at patterns, create patterns, detect patterns, predict where things are going to go from a data analysis standpoint, right? So for those of you who weren't like math majors or comp sci majors, or when you start to study like math and large numbers, right? It's like what you want to be able to see is like after a certain amount of time, if I see a certain number of numbers, can I guess what the next numbers are going to be, right? And what certainly can I do that, right? That becomes very important when you start to do things like sorting, or you want to have like a huge amount of information that you want to take in. You want to have some kind of ability to kind of predict and sort and get through it efficiently. All that to say, right? Okay, Dave, why does that matter? Because once we can do that layer and then put some kind of business layer on top of it, now I can take all this analysis and I can use this to look at things like how you run your business, right? What do we look like for last quarter over quarter? Right, we sold this many widgets and we got this much profit margin, and we did this in marketing. Like, how, if I want to make this more efficient, how can I do that? Okay, well, those are numbers that I can look at a pattern and then predict what the next pattern is going to be. Well, I can give you with some certainty your pattern is going to look this way. Well, if I want to change that, what do I do? So I say all that to say what I get excited is we're seeing all these things that allow you to take in this data and go, how do I operate and run my business more efficiently? Which is really, that part is really cool, right? So I try to stick to the cool things and not like the scary things of like, oh, well, Skynet's going to come kill us all, right? Because we could also do that as well. Like it is very much that as well. When you start thinking about the things of like, okay, well, if I'm having something make decisions and it's automating those decisions, to your point, it's not a black box. It's nice that we can get some clarity, but when we don't, it's making these decisions. And the reality is this thing any machine can process and make decisions 10 times faster, probably 100 times faster than a human ever could, right? So its ability to go take and understand and make a decision, right, while we're trying to catch up to it, where does that lead you, right? Like I'm waiting to where I was at a conference and the guy was talking about how like they built, I think it was using Google's DeepMind, right? Like basically they trained it to do Go, which is a game, and like now no human can beat it. No human can beat it to Go.
Yeah, I heard about that. Yeah.
Right. We can't beat it. Right. So that, the sci-fi, you start to get a little scary. And it's like, okay, well, like there's no decision I can make that this thing can't make, that it's not going to beat me in. Right. Well, that's just in a game. What happens if I apply it somewhere else? Right. Where does it finally do the iRobot thing of, well, I've calculated all the data and I've realized that the problem is human beings. Like, oh, well, can't deny your logic, but we still want to be here. So.
Yeah. Well, look, what I'll tell you though is, and this is the interesting, if you will, sobering thought of it, is that like in some cases, while we're grappling about the perspectives, like how far can this go? Put your mind in perspective of who's committing the bad things today, right? And I look at other countries, nation states, the fraud rings, et cetera, where they're just unabated. The reality is that to the point of your example and using machine in order to be unbeatable at Go. They're doing that, and now humans can't stop them in terms of stopping fraud from occurring, right? So like there actually is only one answer. There is like lean into it and then give better insight as to what is occurring, so that way you can become more comfortable, because the reality is they're not going to slow down anytime soon. Like we've gone too far. I think the only way we could have fixed this is if we just unplugged it very early on and everyone just went out and played outside versus playing with computers. But we're not there anymore.
Yep. Jordan, dude, as always, man, it was great talking to you. Thanks for coming on the show, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jordan, it's great meeting you, man. I'm surprised I've never met you before, but we're gonna make it such that we spend some time together.
That's exactly it. I'm assuming that you will be at Identiverse.
I'll be at RSA for sure. Identiverse, probably. Yes.
Okay.
We'll be there. Listen, you guys know what it is. Make sure to follow the Identity Jedi Show on YouTube, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. Subscribe to the Identity Jedi newsletter every 2 weeks. Wednesday, 7 p.m. comes to your box, all the latest tidbits on identity. You guys know what it is. So next time, be good to each other, be kind to each other, love each other. We'll see you guys on the next show. Man, what a great interview with Jordan. This is about a wrap for the first episode of season 3 of the Identity Jedi Show. I did want to take a couple of minutes here just to kind of talk to you about where I think the state of the industry is. I was having a conversation this past week when I was down in Minneapolis. Shout out to Minneapolis, the Identity and Access Management meetup there. Some awesome people there, had a great conversation. But part of this is we were talking about what this industry is going to look like. And I made a comment that over the next 10 years, we're going to see a radically different world when it comes to identity. I think the level of technology and innovation that we have access to right now is going to dramatically shift how we look at identity. Some of the things that we've been trying to do or probably should have focused on decades ago, we finally have the technology to do. And so when we move past the administration level details of identity right now, a lot of the work that we do and a lot of the platforms that we build deliver value in the administration side. Let me help you do access reviews. Let me help you write policies. Let me help you manage this big, huge mess of identity and get a visibility and governance over it. I think now we're going to see over the next 10 years that the ability to administer that in an automatic fashion is going to completely change how we look at it. We're going to be able to get rid of a lot of the things that we look at where we don't need to build platforms that allow you to administer. We're going to be able, through AI and ML and these algorithms, to do things like completely get rid of access reviews, look at data in real time and suggest policies and then enforce those policies for you. So now I think the shift in identity is going to be not so much administration and governance, but proactiveness and actual enforcement. How are we taking the things that we're doing in identity and enforcing them as a true part of security? And how do we measure the effectiveness of that? How much are we reducing risk with the policies that we're enforcing based on the administration details that we've automated? That, I think, is going to be the kind of future of identity and how we look at this 10 years from now. We're starting to see it in some of the platforms that are being built now, starting to see some of the features that are coming out on these platforms. But I'm telling you, I think over the next decade, we're just going to see that accelerate. I'm really excited about that. I've always been a futurist. I could be off by 10 years or 15 years, or it may never happen. But when I look across the industry with some of the younger companies that are out there, what some of the bigger platforms are doing, what some of the security vendors are starting to do, it just seems like everything's pointing in that direction. So I'll start off season 3 with that prediction. The next 10 years, I think, will completely shift identity on its head. I think access reviews will be gone. I think policy writing will be gone. I think practitioners will be logging into these tools more so as an identity version of a SOC analyst, looking at threats across the security landscape of their environment and identity threats. And they're going, hey, show me what the most sensitive identity is within my organization. What risks are it exposed to? Show me the overall risk level of my identities right now. And what should I be focused on? What policies should I be enforcing and rewriting to make sure that I'm lowering that risk? I think those are the type of activities and conversations we'll be having. But hey, let me know what you think. Drop something in the comments. Send it over to identityjedi@gmail.com. Let's get the conversation started. Listen, thank you so much again for tuning in. We're going to be dropping every week, starting this week. The next 3 weeks, you're going to get an episode every Monday After that, as we get into June, we're going to go back to our twice-a-month schedule. My media team would kill me if we tried to do this every week. We wanted to start the season off with a bang, especially coming up to Identiverse. That's the Super Bowl for identity. Yes, I'll be at Identiverse. I've got 2 sessions speaking there, and I've also got a very exclusive event that I will be hosting along with Saban. Details will be dropping soon. By the time you listen to this, there'll be details so you can hear all about it. If you're at Identiverse, hit me up. Would love to hang out with you, talk with you, maybe grab a beer. It's going to be an awesome time. We will see you there. Until next time, be good to each other, be kind to each other, love each other. Thank you so much for tuning in to season 3. Let's make it a great one. See you on the next episode.
I won't stop, I can't stop, the grind is all I know. I'm focused, I can't stop, the hustle's all I know. I'm hungry, ambitious, my heart is on go. You in the presence of greatness, that's all you need to know.